Okay, so now we go to part 1, and I start with a more detailed outline of that part 1. So part 1, that is in general about the ordinal revolution. That was the revolution that preceded the behavioral revolution. That was what is now called the classical paradigm came into being. So the classical view that most of your courses are based upon. And it started with the invention of the origin of the first idea, how people got the first idea to do the ordinal approach, the birth of homo economicus. That's section 1.1. Then once the people had the basic idea, all kind of fields should develop that idea. And here we will not read them all, but for all kind of intertemporal choice and other fields, the models, the ordinal approach was developed. That's what chapter 1 describes. So those are positive results of the ordinal approach, what is now the classical paradigm. Then comes chapter 2, that shows all kind of problems that arose, and mostly empirical problems, violations of all these theories. And for all the various fields, we will not read them all now, but we will see later for all those fields, all those problems, so many problems were encountered that people said we need something new. Then I end today with this meeting with chapter 3, the intermediate period. It was not yet behavioral, but the first seeds of behavioral were already there in that period. That's where we end today, if I may call it like that. Now chapter 1, and we start with section 1, how the idea of the ordinal approach came into being. To do that, we go to the in the beginning, before the 20th century, there were no strict, clearly stated rules for empirical concepts, how they should be observed, what they should mean, things like that. People just more or less freely speculate on all kind of things existing. And like introspection was used, also economics, psychological inputs were freely used without any clear definitions. For instance, Bentham, Bernoulli, and others, they introduced the concept of utility, and they just posited it as something concrete, goodness, whatever it is. And did all kind of calculations with it, did not clearly define the empirical status. For instance, Samuelson, he's already from after the ordinal revolution, he's from the classical paradigm. He discussed his predecessors, and for instance, Edgeworth was somebody before the ordinal revolution. So Samuelson said, for Edgeworth, utility was as real as his morning jam. So it's something existing. People just speculate it exists, and they think they can do all kind of things with it, just like that. Because there was no clear definition, all kind of confused debates were going on. For instance, the famous water-diamond paradox. For instance, if I pay more for diamond than for water, that seems to suggest that the utility of diamond is bigger than the utility of water. But now wait a minute, I need water more than diamond. Water I need to survive, and diamond not. So that suggests that the utility of water is bigger than the utility of diamond. So what is it? They seem to contradict. So this is an ambiguity. But if you use the revealed preference paradigm, like we will discuss later, and when you clearly define the decision situation, then such paradoxes don't occur. Well, in the beginning of the 20th century, big changes were going on, and also all empirical sciences, in fact. They were generated mostly by a group of people called the Vienna Circle. Those were philosophers, many in Vienna, and here I wrote all kinds of terms of their ideas. But the basic idea is, if you want to do empirical work, then all the things you define, all the concepts you talk about, you should indicate how they can be observed, how they can be verified, falsified. If you don't do that, it doesn't make much sense. There's metaphysics, that metaphysics means unobservable things. They become more or less taboo. And if you want to do good empirical work, don't do metaphysics. For instance, a metaphysical question, the claim that the world is deterministic, well, maybe quantum mechanics can say, but in general, let's ignore that. This is usually, you kind of don't know how you could observe or determine that. Or for instance, the claim that utility measures happiness in your heart. You don't know how can you measure what you feel in your heart. We don't know. So economists should stay away from that, was the idea in those days, much still today. Rudolf Carnap was an influential person in this group of people. Popper, he later added a useful, important refinement, but for our purposes, we need not discuss it so much today. Anyway, for all social and all empirical sciences, the empirical status of every concept came into question, had to be clarified. Now in economics, this led to what is called the ordinal revolution. Economists asked themselves and after debates came to converged on the idea that they will use an observable choice as their empirical primitive. So people can choose between different things. They choose whatever they like most. That's what you observe. That's what you base everything on. This is called the revealed preference paradigm. Everything you talk about should be, in the end, related to what it says in terms of observable choice. So not only do they commit to observable, but they commit to observable in that particular manner. So they very strictly and maybe narrowly define the domain of economics. They say introspection or psychological inputs that don't fit into that, we should avoid. We should stay away from that. Doesn't mean that these are bad concepts, but it means they don't call that economics. That was the idea. And usually observable choice maximizes utility. Later we will justify it. So then you get that individuals that you study, call it homo economicus, are emotionless, calculating machines, and they choose whatever maximizes their utility, that you can call self-interest. So this is the kind of subjects that economists were studying. Similar things were going on in other fields. For instance, psychology in those days, there was behaviorism, which also in a way was very put strict rules on what you can observe and how you should observe. But let's not discuss that so much. One question that could be arisen at this stage, maybe you wonder, and you say to yourself, why would you restrict the empirical information that you use? Why would you only look at observable choice? If introspection can also give information, why do economists, don't they want to hear about it? It seems that they tie the hand on their back for no good reason. Well, surely there are cons to that restriction, but the big pro of what economists did is that everything is very clearly defined. It's very clear what you mean. Whenever when you talk about utility or whatever, that means something about observable choice, and it's precisely specified what it means for observable choice. So now you know exactly, it's clearly unambiguously defined. Economics went further in that than the other social sciences. So economics may be a more narrow domain, and that can be a drawback, but the big pro is economics is more than other social sciences, well-defined, formal, unambiguous, and that's a valuable thing. So, of course, this course is about the behavioral approach, how that deviates and changes things and wants to change things, but it doesn't want to change the good things of the ordinal. You know, this was a very good thing that the ordinal approach brought in. We want to extend it, not delete it. Here are some influential references. I will not speak about what they did. Anyway, probably all the courses you had so far were on homo economicus, this utility maximizing emotionist calculator. And more or less implicitly, that was always assumed. This is the classical paradigm that is probably still today the prevailing paradigm in economics. It's homo economicus, so that is the Mr. Spock. And using that paradigm, of course, we will want to deviate a bit, but many good things were obtained from it. So for a while to come, I will talk about this classical approach, the many good things that brought many positive results, and results we want to keep. So now for a while, I'll be talking about the foundation of classical economics, what more or less implicitly has been assumed in all the courses you had so far. And I start to go on. I go now how in all kind of fields, all kind of things were developed from it, but that will be in the next recording. So this recording is going to finish here.